So let's go back to the black arrow tool, that is the selection tool, and select the frame that we're working with here. And for the time being, we're going to revert this to a situation where we can see all of the content. So let's go ahead and choose Fit Frame to Content up here in the control panel. Just one click, and that will stretch out the frame so we can see the entire image. And I'll just nudge that by clicking and dragging into the middle of the column. Now, I already mentioned a couple of advantages of placing native file formats like Photoshop documents inside of your InDesign layouts. But I'm going to introduce you to another advanced option that I think you'll get a kick out of. With this image selected, let's go to the Object menu. About 2/3 of the way down, choose Object Layer Options. Now, note that you can make these changes as you place the file if you enable the Show Import Options. But I wanted to hide that from you at first and now expose you to these more advanced features. So Object Layer Options. And this dialog box should look hauntingly familiar. Do you see these eyes over here on the left-hand side? This should remind you of the Layers panel inside of Photoshop. So first we'll turn on Preview so we can see what we're doing as we work. Move this over to the side, and essentially what you're able to do here inside of InDesign is toggle the visibility of different layers or layer comps if we had them in our placed file. We can change the visibility of those different attributes of the placed file without using Photoshop. Technically speaking, Photoshop doesn't even need to be on the same machine. Now, you probably have Photoshop installed as well, but it's not really needed, and you're doing all of this editing real time inside of InDesign. So right now we can see that this file has 3 layers. There's a background layer, there's a cutout version that you'll see in a moment, and there's a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So let's turn off the background layer to see what we have going on here. So just click the icon once, wait just one moment while it updates the preview, and here you can see this cutout. I just did a rough extraction in Photoshop for you. And even though this file looks different, it's actually just showing you different layers of the same Photoshop file. At this point, I can click OK, and that updates here in my layout. Now I can continue to go back to that same menu command and make more changes. Let's do one other example. So again, back to the Object menu, Object Layer Options. Let's nudge this over so we can see what we're doing because Preview is on. And this time, we'll keep the cutout layer visible, but we'll also turn on a hue and saturation adjustment layer that I've created for you. So click that, and here we get kind of a duotone effect that was created with a hue and saturation adjustment layer. And again, this is all the same Photoshop file. Now there's a couple important details to understand here. Take a look at the bottom. It says when updating link, keep layer visibility overrides. This is important. If you want to retain the visibility overrides that you're setting up here in InDesign, you want to make sure that you keep this on, and this is the default. If for some reason you'd like to experiment with these layers here inside of InDesign, but ultimately rely on the layer visibility of Photoshop, you would choose this other option, use Photoshop's layer visibility. So that is to say that if you edit this layered Photoshop file in Photoshop, change things around in the layers and save it, it would update the layout here. So I'm going to keep the visibility overrides and go ahead and click OK. So we're obviously doing some funky things with this file. Let's go over to the Links panel to see what's happening there. This image is selected, therefore it's queued up here in the Links panel, and we can see the file name, we can see that it's placed on page 2, and we can see the red eyeball icon here. That red eye does not mean that there's a problem, it's not necessarily a warning, it's just a reminder that you have customized the layer visibility of that placed object. So if you hand this file off to somebody else and they're not sure how you're creating this design all from one Photoshop document, that is their visual reminder. Now in this example, we placed a Photoshop file and controlled the layer visibility overrides, but also note that you can achieve the same effect with layered Illustrator files and layered PDF files.